So I will get into my acronyms, but again, my name is Rose Whitehurst. I am a healthcare consultant at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I live about 20 minutes from here, which is really nice. Prior to coming to Blue Cross, I was a certified specialist in gerontological nutrition, and I've been a registered dietitian, which is the RD, and a licensed dietitian and nutritionist in North Carolina since 2009. So I got my undergrad in nutrition from UNC Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels.
All right.
And my master's in nutrition from Meredith College in Raleigh. Okay, so I got some street cred. But I'm currently not in a dietitian-based role, so I love being able to come out here, put my RD hat on. I told my son, I was like, I'm going to go be an RD today. He's like, aren't you always an RD? Technically, but... So yeah, gerontological nutrition is a huge passion of mine. So I was asked to come speak on how nutrition can impact risk of falls, fall prevention, that sort of thing. So definitely raise your hand if you have any questions. And I just want to sort of caveat with, as I am not any of your personal dietitians, this is all going to be high level, sort of generic advice. Nothing is going to be prescriptive. Everyone's health is different. So, if anything I'm saying, you're like, that's different than what my doctor told me, totally normal. This is just kind of general information. Hopefully you learned something. And if you want to talk after, maybe about more kind of personal things you have going on, I'm happy to. Any questions so far? All right, now I've got to do the hard part, which is figure out how to advance my slides here. So this little cartoon made me laugh, and if any of you know doctors, I've worked with many, I would not recommend following them to lunch and eating what they're having. There's your hamburger and your French fries. Maybe follow your dietitian to lunch and have what they're having, but probably not your doctor. But there's a lot of things that go into fall risk, things like smoking increases risk of falls, living in a rural environment, lower income, depression, dementia, a lot of different things. But for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be just focusing on those nutritional risk factors. So the ones we're going to talk about, malnutrition and sarcopenia. Has anyone heard the term sarcopenia before? Some have, some haven't. So loss of muscle is a normal part of aging. It's kind of depressing that after age 30, you start losing 5 to 6% of your muscle mass every decade. So that is normal. Sarcopenia is a fancy word of muscle wasting, muscle loss that's happening at a rate faster than what we'd like to see. So that's what we want to prevent. Diet is one of those things. We'll also talk about vitamin D deficiency and its role. We know that vitamin D is essential for our body to absorb calcium, and vitamin D deficiency is quite common in older adults. So we'll talk about how to keep a pulse on that. And then also hydration. We're always talking about hydration with older adults, so we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. So this is that fancy word sarcopenia in the middle. I'm not going to read all of these. Hopefully you guys can see these okay. These are all different factors that play a role in sarcopenia. Things like depression, delirium, cognitive impairment. One thing I found that's interesting is those who fall once are more likely to fall again. If you fall once, oftentimes you kind of don't want to push yourself, you don't want to go out there, you don't want to try things. That increases your risk of another fall through sarcopenia. But the one we're going to talk about specifically is malnutrition. And when I was working on this slide, it made me think of a personal story. Recently, my 79-year-old father-in-law, who has dementia, Alzheimer's, was admitted to the hospital for constipation. It had been 5 or 6 days since he'd gone to the bathroom, and they did all these scans, and they found, in looking for a bowel obstruction, they found cancer in his lungs, his liver, and his kidneys, and would never have found it if it hadn't been for the scan to test for the bowel obstruction. But as part of this, my mother-in-law is like, this is great. He's down to 150 pounds. This is his dream weight. He's normally about 180. And she's like, his blood pressure is better than it's ever been. And she's, just raving on his vitals and his weight. But for me and for his medical team, the red flags went off that, yes, he may be at his ideal weight, but it's the trend. I don't know if you remember when your kids were little or your grandkids were little, when they go to the doctor, they put their weight and their height on a trend. And it's the trend that's more important than the number. And it's the same with seniors. We don't want to see that dramatic loss, and that dramatic 30-pound loss for him. Now we know kind of why that was happening, but that is a red flag for sarcopenia. What else did I want to mention on this slide? I think that's about it for now. So, as far as sarcopenia prevention, and one thing I wanted to mention, when we think about malnutrition, I don't want malnutrition to be thought of as skinny. Skinny and malnourished are two completely different things. You can be overweight and malnourished. You can be underweight and malnourished. You probably hear this term of overfed and undernourished. So with malnutrition, there's certain things that we want to be mindful of, and it's not always just your weight. It's not always just your weight trend. There isn't kind of a U-shaped relationship with weight and falls, however, such that those that are underweight or those that are severely overweight are going to be at higher risk of falls than those that are kind of in that middle area of normal to overweight. If you do feel like you are a person that is at high risk of sarcopenia, based on that last slide, I do recommend one thing in terms of diet is talking to your doctor about leucine or HMB supplementation. HMB is a byproduct of leucine metabolism. Leucine is an amino acid that is found in a lot of foods and a lot of supplements. And this has been shown in study after study to be very helpful in restoring muscle mass and holding on to muscle strength when combined with exercise. So none of the things I'm going to talk about today are just a magic cure that you can lay on the couch and eat right and not have falls. All of these go with exercise and nutrition. But that is one thing I would recommend talking to your doctor about if you worry about sarcopenia and muscle loss. Another thing is omega-3 fatty acids. So these are things found commonly in cold water fish. So if you eat sardines, if you eat mackerel, salmon, tuna, also nuts, so things like walnuts are a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. Certain plant-based oils like canola oil are good sources. So definitely making sure that if you're not someone that eats a lot of those foods very often, consider supplementation there as well. And that role, as far as falls prevention, has a lot to do with the anti-inflammatory properties of these. So much of aging has to do with inflammatory processes in the body. And so this is a wonderful supplement to your diet. Leafy greens. I could spend this entire 30 minutes talking about the health benefits of leafy greens. These are things like kale, collards, turnips, broccoli, bok choy, all that good stuff. So packed with nutrition in every bite. All the minerals, all the vitamins, and really studies have shown time and time again that the more leafy greens in someone's diet, overall the more nourished they are. And that is one thing I wanted to call out as far as bang for your buck. So I know as you get older, your appetite just kind of naturally goes down. You're not as active as you used to be. You're not maybe, out and about as much as you used to be. Your tastes change. Medications can make you feel kind of crummy. For a lot of different reasons, appetite tends to go down. Well, this is not always the best thing when your nutritional needs actually go up. So your calorie needs go down and your nutritional needs go up. And by this, I mean eating has to be more intentional as you get older than it was when you were younger. You can't just kind of eat like you've always eaten. You're going to end up being what I described as overfed and undernourished. So that's why I like leafy greens. Very low in calories, very high in nutrition. Yes?
Is there a way to measure nutrition? I suspect my wife's going to be very good nutrition and I'm going to be very poor nutrition, but I don't look bad shape or anything.
Yep. So that's a great question. So some things to look for as far as just physically. There's things that you can do, kind of blood work. They can measure your vitamin D. They can measure your hemoglobin to test for anemia. They can measure your albumin. There's various lab works that they can do. But as far as physically, the things I would look for would be if all of a sudden your rings and watches are fitting a little looser than usual. That's a red flag. If you notice that the bones in your cheek are maybe a little bit more prominent than they used to be, that's a sign. If you notice just weakness, things that you used to be able to do, now you just feel weak, that's a sign. Also lethargy, apathy. There's so much of a brain-body connection, so if you're having trouble focusing, or maybe you just don't care about things you used to care about, that can be a sign of malnutrition. And then also your hair, your skin, and your nails are huge, what's the word I'm looking for? Indicators of nutritional status. So if your nails are getting very peely, that can be a sign, or they're cracking or not growing. If your hair you feel like isn't as maybe glossy as it used to be, or if it's falling out at a rate more than it used to be. And then for your skin, if it's not as shiny, if it's this time of year is kind of tough because everyone's a little dry, but you know how you look, how you feel. If you feel like your hair, skin, and nails are needing a little help, things are fitting a little looser, those are good signs to look for that you may not be properly. Or if you're getting sick a lot, if you're getting sick more than you used to, or if you do get hurt, any sort of abrasion, if it's taking longer to heal than usual, because nutrition is so important for remaking skin cells, that's another sign that you may be malnourished. Good question. Mm-hmm.
Is there a test for omega-3 fatty acids?
How much are in your body? Like, are you deficient? No, there is not. They're closely tied with the, when you get a lipid panel, so like your cholesterol, your triglycerides, that kind of stuff. So if those are ever off, that would be a time to talk to your doctor, like, hey, do you think I should start supplementing? But there's not like a test that I know of for your levels in your body.
Is there a difference between omega-3 and omega-6?
There is. Omega-3s, it's all about the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, so you want kind of more omega-3s than omega-6s. I think in practical life, I think you would have to be very in tune to be able to kind of measure that. I would say as long as you're eating foods high in omega-3, I think you're good to go. But in general, omega-3s are going to be healthier than omega-6s. And as far as the leucine and the HMB supplementation, I know Thorne, I don't know if you've heard of that brand, Thorne with an E. They make an awesome supplement. It's called Amino Complex, I think. It's a little bit expensive, so again, if you don't worry that you're malnourished, I wouldn't worry about it. But I do love that brand, and that's a good way to get it. But these are the foods at the bottom that do contain high levels of leucine and HMB, all healthy to incorporate into your diet. Yes?
Asiago cheese is good on my bagel.
Yes. Yes, you're going to live forever. My first job ever was at Brugger's Bagel, and I remember people would come in and they would mispronounce that word so bad. It's like Asagio and all this stuff. Yeah, it always makes me chuckle. So protein. It says here adequate protein. So protein, just a general rule of thumb of how much do you need is your weight in pounds divided by 2.2. For seniors, that is the minimum amount of grams per day. And I have in my notes somewhere, which I can't quite get to in this visual, but for a 150-pound person, I think that's around 60 to 80 grams per day. Obviously, if you're 200 pounds, I think it's more like 80 to 100 grams per day. And the thing about protein is your body can really only absorb about 25 to 30 grams per sitting. So for these people that don't eat a lot of protein at lunch, don't eat a lot of protein at dinner, and then they pig out on protein at dinner, T-bone steaks, burgers, that kind of stuff, that's not doing anything for their body. So it's important to have protein-rich foods at all of your meals and snacks, especially as you get older. Yes?
Talking about the minimum grams per day of protein, can you just use something like an Ensure instead of eating meat?
So oral nutrition supplements, there's definitely a place for them. I sort of have a love-hate relationship with them. I think if you have a healthy appetite and you're at a healthy weight, I do not think that they are necessary. If you're going through, recovering from a surgery or something like that where your protein needs are even higher, I think that there's a place for them. I would not use them as meal replacements though. You hear a lot about them as meal replacements in younger people, but in older people, I think it's okay to maybe have half of one kind of as a midday snack, half of one as a mid-afternoon snack, if that's what you would like. They're easy to put in your purse and go out the door, but I would not use them as a meal replacement. And there are brands that are healthier than others. Ensure and Boost are always the ones that you hear about. Don't love the ingredients in them as far as it's just very processed, very chemically, and I can kind of taste that. Orgain is a great brand. I think there's a really healthy and tasty, Kate Farms is another brand that is very, very wholesome and tasty. They're also very expensive. So kind of take that into consideration as well. So I have a little quiz here called How Much Protein? So day one, very typical day. You have your Cheerios with your milk and your banana, grilled cheese and tomato soup for lunch, an apple, spaghetti with meat sauce and broccoli, and a chocolate chip cookie. Overall, sounds like a pretty healthy day, normal amount of food. How many grams of protein do you think this is?
I think it's about 40
40?
on the high side, I'm guessing. 20? I think it's less.
Yeah, more like 20, 25.
Do you guys feel pretty confident about what foods have protein? Meat, cheese, dairy, fish, beans.
About 10.
10? We've got 10 to 40. The answer is about 45. So, for a 120-pound person, this is a good amount of protein for them. It's fairly spread out throughout the day. They've got the milk, they've got the cheese. If they make the tomato soup with milk, that's going to be even more. And then meat sauce. So again, for a smaller person, that's fine. Day two, we've got the fried egg and spinach and avocado on some sprouted bread, carrots and hummus, tuna salad, Greek yogurt, a beef and bean chili, and then a frozen Yasso Greek yogurt bar in the evening.
That's a lot. 80.
We're thinking it's more, 80?
Covered in chocolate.
More?
Higher than 80?
Higher than 80.
95.
103. 103 grams. So for a 200-pound person, that's gonna meet their needs. So we've got the protein in the egg, which I heard, very little in the spinach, very little in the avocado. Sprouted bread, I think Dave's is a popular brand of sprouted bread. A lot of protein in that. Hummus made with chickpeas, good source of protein. Tuna, excellent source. Greek yogurt, we've got that on here twice. And then those Greek yogurt bars are quite tasty. And then a beef and bean chili. So you can just see just a huge discrepancy between, protein. And I like that this one as well, it's very spread out throughout the day. So all of the protein is getting absorbed.
Rose?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You talked about dairy. What about people with lactose intolerance or dairy intolerance, and you're substituting the milk, say with oat milk or almond milk, or yogurts with oat or almond or plant-based?
Great question. So as far as vitamin D goes, most non-dairy milks are going to be fortified with vitamin D. Actually, that's the number one source of vitamin D in our diets is vitamin D that's just been added or fortified to the foods that we naturally eat. In terms of non-dairy milks, the ones that are going to have the most protein is going to be soy milk or Lactaid, which just has the lactase added. The lowest is going to be almond milk. So almond milk is essentially like, to me, a flavored water. It's going to provide hydration. There's a little bit of vitamin D, but it's essentially no protein. I think it's less than a gram.
Well, that surprises me because I thought nuts had protein.
Yep, and they do. But the way that they make almond milk, I think it's actually very few almonds that go into the almond milk. And so I would rather you eat almonds than drink the almond milk if you're, using that as your protein source. But people oftentimes will use almond milk in a smoothie where they add protein powder. So you're still getting the protein. Just don't ever consider the almond milk your protein at the meal, for example. So if you're having a bowl of cereal with almond milk, I would also have an egg if you eat eggs, or I would have add some like crushed nuts to the top, something like that, just to get more protein.
I think my daughter drinks almond milk, so I should suggest her soy milk or something like that.
I'm a big fan of soy milk. I know there's a lot of kind of rumors and misconceptions out there about it, as far as it's going to give you breasts if you're a man, or it's going to give you breast cancer if you're a woman. There's a lot of misconceptions out there that have not been substantiated or proven.
So the soy misconceptions just are false.
Yes, I think, a lot of plant-based dietitians that I know are huge proponents of soy, whether it's a soybean, soy milk, anything like that. And it's actually found to be pretty protective against breast cancer. So I think the reason it just gets the bad reputation is because of the estrogens that are made in the soy milk, but I don't think that they are transferred to estrogens in our body, if that makes sense. Yes?
What about 1% milk?
1%?
Yeah.
I don't believe the protein content is much different between the soy, the 1 and the 2. It's the fat content. So there's going to be less fat in 1%. But the protein level is pretty stable. Mm-hmm.
Rose, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't whole milk only contain 5% fat? So if they say 1%, literally it's not getting rid of 99%, it's getting rid of like 4%. Or, there's a certain percentage
of fat. Correct.
In whole milk. So that's a kind of a misnomer, because people think, well, I'm getting 1% milk. It's 99% fat-free, but that's not true.
Right. Yep. No, you're right. You are right. I can't get my husband off the whole milk. Like, people really still drink that? I was just... Pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
My mom grew up on a dairy farm in Iowa, and they had to drink milk, warm right out of the cow. And so she hates milk. And so we didn't grow up drinking a lot of milk. And so I'm like, I am fine with skim milk, But I'd always laugh at those, during the Olympics, they have those commercials where it's like 99% of Olympic athletes drink milk as kids. Have you seen those? Trying to promote milk, and it's like 99% of everyone drank milk as a kid. It's one of those like fake marketing kind of ploys.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Things like Cheerios, breakfast cereals, are they as good as they claim to be?
Breakfast cereals? You say Cheerios?
Cheerios or
Oh.
cornflakes? Or...
Yeah, I think that they're fine. I think that they are a base for a healthy breakfast. I don't think that they're necessarily a balanced breakfast, but I think they are going to be low in protein. So again, like I said, I would add things to them. I would add fruit to them. I would add nuts to them. I would pair them with something else. But they're healthy carbs. They have a decent amount of fiber. So it's really the fiber that you want to look for when you're looking for breakfast cereal. So if it has 3 or more grams of fiber, that's a good choice as far as blood sugars, as far as keeping you full. People get confused a lot. Like, what do I look for? Am I looking at fat? Am I looking at sodium? Am I looking at, and for cereals, I would say the most important thing is going to be look at added sugar and fiber. So the ones that have the most fiber, the least added sugar, are going to be the healthiest ones.
I read somewhere that when these ingredients are processed, a lot of their useful ingredients or useful benefits are also thrown out of the window. Is that true?
I think it depends. I think for cereal companies, I think they generally do a pretty good job of fortifying. But as far as like taking a supplement form of something, it's always better to get from the source if possible. So, you know, if you're going to take a calcium supplement versus eating something with calcium, because there's other things in the food that help your body absorb it. But I wouldn't say that they're lying on the label, you know, as far as what's in it. But I'm always going to promote getting food from real sources. But there are some things like vitamin D that are just really hard to get from sources. Like I said, most of our intake is from fortification. Speaking of vitamin D, let me see if I can figure out how to change the display here. All right, so vitamin D, we have all heard about it, always in the news, you know, cancer prevention and mood, Alzheimer's prevention. But as we age, the ability of our skin to synthesize vitamin D from the sun goes down. And that paired with older adults generally spend more time indoors than younger adults. It's kind of a perfect storm of vitamin D deficiency. The best way to get vitamin D is going to be 15 to 30 minutes a day of moderate sunlight exposure, particularly on your arms and on your face. Even on cold days, I try to at least get, you know, my lower arms, just some sunshine. So that's going to be the best way. And again, vitamin D is important because it allows your body to absorb calcium, which is important for keeping our bones strong. And it's particularly helpful, just in studies I've read, to prevent hip fractures. So people that are vitamin D deficient are more likely to break a hip if they fall than those that have good vitamin D. Vitamin D is something that they can test in your blood. Hopefully they are at your annual physicals, and recommending supplementation if needed. Yes?
My wife's always out in the garden, but she covers everything. So I should say, you know, wear a short sleeve shirt, honey.
If it's a nice day, absolutely.
She covers hat, neck, back on the face, the hands.
Yeah, I know dietitians and dermatologists always kind of butt heads here because, you know, they say cover everything. But it's 15 to 30 minutes. The likelihood that you're going to get a sunburn is pretty low. And so I think, you know, arms and face in the sun, good for your mood, good for your skin, good for vitamin D. I listed here some food sources. You'll notice a lot of them are the same ones from the omega-3s, things like the fatty fish. Egg yolks. Not all egg yolks are created equal. Chickens, just like us, make vitamin D from the sun. So when you see these chicken farms where the chickens are never out in the sun, very low vitamin D in their egg yolks. Versus, I'll just say Nellie's is a brand that I like. The chickens that are free range, you know, it sounds like this hippy dippy stuff, like we want our chickens to be free range and happy. Truthfully, it is healthier. Their yolks look different, and the nutritional value is much more. So if you do eat eggs, I do recommend the free range. Give the chickens the sun.
I love sardines. Is that going to make up for her not getting 15, 30 minutes of sunshine?
I would still want her to get the 15 to 30 minutes of sunshine. I think.
Does that include driving in your car?
I believe it would, yeah, the whole left side of your face.
Unless you have heavily tinted windows, that
Yeah.
would also include.
Yeah, I think I can't imagine that the glass would make a difference. You'll just get those sunspots on the left side of your face. I've included here how much is recommended, and then also the upper limit. So vitamin D is something that you can get too much of. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, you can have too much. So you'll see here the upper limit is technically 4,000 IUs. I'm always amazed, these doctors, they'll prescribe people exorbitant amounts of vitamin D. So unless your doctor tells you to take 40,000 or something, 4,000 is really the upper limit. Anything more than that, you can get GI upset, you can get rashes, different kinds of things. So, and then hydration. So what would make seniors more likely to get dehydrated?
Not drinking enough water.
Okay. We said we have not drinking enough water, drinking too much coffee. Why else would seniors in particular be predisposed to dehydration?
I got dehydration when I got sick.
Okay.
I thought I had plenty of water.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in the hospital with dehydration.
Okay.
So something about medication or being sick will contribute to that.
Yeah, so if you're sick from a sense of losing fluids, whether you're sweating a lot or having diarrhea or throwing up, obviously you're going to be more at risk for dehydration, or if you've had a lot of blood loss, from a surgery or something like that. Older adults also have less thirst sensors. They don't feel thirst like they did when they were younger.
I did not feel thirsty at all.
Right.
And I ended up in the hospital.
It's amazing. You can't rely on your thirst anymore. And I hate to say don't trust your body, but this is one of those cases where by the time you feel thirsty, it's too late. So don't rely on thirst. Also, certain medications, particularly diuretics, if you're on those for any sort of heart problems or swelling, those can increase your risk of dehydration. Also, I've had older people tell me, well, I don't want to be up peeing all night. So they purposely cut themselves off at a certain time just to try to sleep. Also, people with diabetes are more at risk of dehydration because when you have diabetes, you tend to pee more because you're trying to get the sugar out. So they're going to be more at risk. Also,
People who are overweight are more likely to get dehydrated.
they could for a variety of reasons. If you have trouble getting up and getting to the bathroom in time, they tend to kind of self-restrict. I know my uncle is like 400 pounds and he'll come to Thanksgiving and he won't drink because he says, I don't want to put anyone out if they have to help me get to the bathroom, which is just, I'm like, oh, just a ticking time bomb. But also anyone that's institutionalized. So if you have any family or friends or loved ones that are in a skilled nursing facility or in the hospital, they do their best. I worked at many for many years. They do their best, but those people are going to be more at risk. And then also if you have memory problems, obviously remembering to drink is going to be something that doesn't happen. So dehydration, it can lead to things like UTIs, which are huge contributors to falls.
Dehydration?
Oh yeah. Dehydration can certainly contribute to UTIs because your urine is just going to be more concentrated. And then it can also lead to, in the summer, things like heat stroke, low blood pressures, kidney problems. So I just wanted to, I'm on the wrong slide here. Let's see. Yeah, so general rule of thumb, again, this is very personalized based on your health conditions, but about 9 cups a day for women and about 13 cups a day for men is recommended. Who thinks that they get that? We got 1. Okay. And so just as a reminder, this is all fluids, all non-alcoholic, non-caffeinated fluids. So this would count things like juice, milk, Powerade. So it's not just water. And then also foods. We use these a lot in long-term care facilities to try to get hydration in people. So cucumbers, melons, huge sources of water, lettuce, berries, even soups will count towards hydration. So keeping water with you, I see a couple water bottles, so good job there. And then mixing it up, so you can add things to your water. You can add cucumbers, you can add mint, you can add lemons, limes, whatever you want to make it taste better. And then, go ahead.
How do you know if you have too much hydration?
So if you have healthy kidneys, you shouldn't have too much hydration. So your kidneys do a really good job of maintaining that homeostasis. There are people that can have too much fluid if their kidneys or their heart are not working as they should. So for people that have heart failure or low ejection fractions, they will be told how much they should be drinking a day. If they have too much, it can cause problems like swelling. But again, if your heart and your kidneys are working well, it's very hard to have too much hydration because you'll just pee it out. But you can tell from lab work if you're dehydrated or if you're overhydrated, and that is your sodium levels in your blood.
Would it also the urine color. If it's very dark, you're dehydrated, very light, you may be over 100.
In general, monitoring urine color is a good idea. There are things, B vitamins. I don't know if any of you have ever taken B vitamins. Your urine is orange. There's certain medications that can affect azo. I know people take for UTI prevention. That can affect your urine color. But if you kind of know what your normal urine color is, you know how it's different when you first wake up than maybe in the middle of the day. So it is a good predictor. Not an exact science, but trends in the right direction. Did you want to jump in about the water challenge?
If you notice, guys, there are pictures on your table. And the reason for that is just to give you an idea. And this may not make sense, but if you think about it, Rose is talking about the amount of water that we drink a day. So let's say you're drinking your water bottle, it's 12 ounces. So when you drink your water, finish your water bottle 12 ounces, take just a regular pitcher like this, if you have one, we've got the fuel around here, put 12 ounces in this from your tap, okay? However much you drink of uncaffeinated or decaffeinated, don't drink garbage. When you're drinking, you want to put in, as far as hydration, by the end of the day, check how much you have hydrated, okay? Your pitcher should be full or pretty much full based on what you drank during the day. So if you'd like to keep track of I know it makes more sense to fill the pitcher and fill your water container and drink that, but this is to physically show you how much you drank during the day. Take the water, water your plants. Do something, don't waste the water your plants, give it to the cats, dogs, whatever, but utilize the water. But it's just to give you an idea of how much that you have consumed during the day to make sure that you are keeping up with hydration, because it's extremely important. During class, if you notice, we take a lot of hydration breaks. It's very important, especially when you're exercising, to hydrate, okay? So again, we've got a few pictures around here. Sorry, we don't have enough for everybody, but if you've got pictures at home, use them. If not, grab one of these, okay?
Well, that just struck me. This says 9 cups. And you said I need 13 cups? That's more than this a day.
There you
A
go.
lot of water.
But do you feel like you're getting that much water in a day? It's a lot of water, but once you get your body used to the amount of water, you will start to feel thirsty if you haven't. I have zero idea. You may have to test that out. The Dollar Tree doesn't tell us a lot of stuff.
That one doesn't have any. Have to get a cup at home, 8 ounces at a time. And yeah, you could just fill that up 8 or 9 cups, and that's about how much you should have a day. And then I was just trying to put it all together to just give some ideas of, I kind of, again, have a love-hate relationship with smoothies. I think smoothies can be terrible. They can be garbage for you. They can be full of sugar, but they can also really go to your benefit. So I like these because they have all the things we've talked about as far as omega-3s, calcium, leafy greens. And that was one thing I was going to mention. With leafy greens, we typically think about salads, right? You don't always want salads, especially in the winter. So some ways to add it into your diet would be things like a stir fry. If you're making a stir fry, adding some bok choy or some collards or some turnip greens, mustard greens, adding it to pasta, adding it to smoothies, can't taste it, adding it to eggs, to soups. There's ways to add leafy greens to the things that you're eating without even having to taste them. So these are just some examples. High in protein, high in omega-3s, high in leafy greens, vitamin D, calcium. So just to kind of put it all together.
Is iceberg lettuce good for anything?
Hydration.
That's about it.
I had iceberg for lunch. I think it's nice in that it's satisfying to eat from like a crunchy perspective. I put it on top of an enchilada, and I think it did probably fill me up a little bit more. the problem with smoothies is that oftentimes people don't feel satisfied because there's something about crunching that makes you feel like you've eaten. So I wouldn't say iceberg is good for nothing, but it's not going to. Yeah.
Along with all the other seafood stuff. I like iceberg lettuce on there.
Well, iceberg lettuce is kind of like a husband, good for something.
Exactly. It's certainly not bad for you, but it is not going to have all of the vitamins.
Salad dressing delivery system.
It's not your leafy green.
Right. It's crunch, it's water. Yeah.
So it's a spoon.
Rose, just dispel this rumor or whatever it is. So NPR had a special on with a nutritionist, and they stated that you should have 40 plants a week. And they said that 40 plants a week, that's like, you might as well just eat the whole garden. And someone said no, because the nutritionist said, when you use rosemary, you're doing a plant. You use basil, you're doing a plant. You use cinnamon, you're doing a plant. You use it. So I sat back and I thought, well, heck, you put cinnamon on your toast in the morning. Boom, not cinnamon, sugar, cinnamon. All of a sudden, you get a little bit of butter and cinnamon, boom, you got yourself a plant.
Right.
Dad, is there anything to that, or is this just like somebody who says, hey, plants are great?
I mean, to me, that sounds a little scammy, the fact that they're saying numbers.
And how much rosemary would you really put in one?
Right. I mean, there are certainly health benefits of herbs and spices. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I could come back and talk for 30 minutes about the benefits of cinnamon in particular, but I wouldn't consider it to be a plant in the same sense of a lot of other plants, if that makes sense. I think herbs and spices are kind of their own bucket. They're great, especially when they kind of are replacing salt or sugar or something like that. And cinnamon is great for blood sugar. People that add cinnamon to their meals, their post-meal blood sugar is much lower. So if you are pre-diabetic or anything like that, cinnamon can be great for that. But no, would not put that in the plant category.
Thank you.
That's a stretch. Any other questions?
I just have one about the age-related muscle wasting. I don't see osteoarthritis on this list for some reason, and I would think it would be a biggie.
I would as well. So osteoporosis is a huge risk factor for falls and hurting yourself from falls. I don't know that those with osteoporosis would necessarily be at more risk for sarcopenia.
Osteoarthritis, I'm saying.
Osteoarthritis.
Because if you suffer from severe arthritis, you're less likely to move.
Correct. Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's painful to exercise, you're obviously going to be doing less exercise. Yeah. Well, I hope everyone learned at least one thing that they can take back and marinate on.
One thing, you said that exercise is painful. Marlene is painful. So we should do our best.
I mean, she's doing her job.
You are welcome.
Well, you all look great, so she's doing a good job.
Thank you, Rose.
Yeah.